Hello everybody and welcome to this week's Easy 11 Plus live lesson from me and from Grigri, who's looking a bit annoyed because he was sitting in a lovely box and I dragged him away. Look how fierce his face is. Grigri is here to answer your questions about the 11 Plus and I'll be helping him out as we go through this lesson. I've got a few questions already from people already in the live chat and some questions that were asked on Facebook. If you've got more questions, please post them in the live chat, which, is it there? Is it there? I think it's there on your YouTube. In my streaming software, it's over there. I'll do my best to answer them. Yeah, if you want to take part in the live chat, you just need to click subscribe underneath the video. It's completely free. It means that you get notifications about my video. There are no other funny nasties if you click on that, and you can always unclick it. But it means you can take part in the live chat and ask your questions. And I will be delighted to answer them as long as they're vaguely relevant. All right, let's turn off the music and let's get started. This light's a little bit too bright. Let's do something about that. There we are. Okay, good. So, where are we? The first question that nobody asked is, why am I doing this? Well, obviously I love talking to you, but also I want you to let you know about the other things that I do. Have a look at my website, RSL Educational, which is linked down there in the video description. Things that you might like on my website. You can get lots of resources, and I mean lots, I mean whatever, 150 odd pages and some online stuff, completely free if you sign up for my free resources, which is the top link there, I think, in the video description. And I have lots of things that are slightly less free, such as my 11 Plus Lifeline service, where you get resources with detailed answers sent to you every week. And I do classes on most weekday evenings that you can join, where you actually get to interact with me and tell me why I'm wrong, rather than me just lecturing at you like this. And I publish books, and I've got online courses for the GL Grammar School exam that you can complete yourself, interactive online courses, and so on and so forth. Loads of these things have freebies. My online courses, you can try the first lesson in each course for free. My online lessons, you can try your first lesson for free. Why would you not try one of my lessons? They're fun, honestly. I think so. I find them fun. And my 11 Plus Lifeline service, you can try the bit where you send me a piece of work for feedback for free. Most of the things I do, you can have a free trial. So take advantage of it. Try stuff out. Do something. Maybe you'll learn something. And maybe you won't, but you've only lost a bit of time. All right, everybody, enough promo from me. Let's actually answer some of your questions. We got new ones coming in. Metaruku says, Robert, I'm going to do 11 Plus this year. Can you help me? Yes, I can, in various of the ways I've just mentioned. Have a look at my website. Moshicat says, do you like strawberries? Yes, I like strawberries. Apparently a strawberry was the very first solid food that I ever ate, apparently. Apparently I reached out and took a strawberry, and then I never wanted to go back to milk, I have been told. But there may be a bit of myth making in there. Anyway, you don't care about that stuff. You care about things like, Caden, how to do net and cube questions quickly. It's a very good question, but I'm not going to jump out and do a net and cube lesson now. Instead, I'm going to point out that this channel has been going for quite a long time now, and I have literally hundreds of past videos on this channel between my weekly live lessons, which will stay up on the channel, and short videos that I've done over the years. So if you dig around in the channel, if you search Easy 11 Plus nets or Easy 11 Plus cubes, something like that, you will find videos that help you with that. And that's generally the answer to any questions about anything specific. Someone said perimeter. I think if you put area in, you'll get questions that relate to perimeter as well, for example. Yeah, that kind of thing. Blah, 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 blah. Someone's saying, why are there only relatively few people here? Well, I didn't publicize this lesson until today because I didn't get around to making a worksheet last week. So I'm not surprised that a lot of people don't know about it. But the way that things work, the lessons stay up on the channel and people can watch them later and learn things. Thank you very much, though, for the people who are in the live comments who are asking questions. Purvis says, how do you do well in inference? I've got a course specifically for inference on my website. If you go to my website and look at the exam expert courses, and you can actually try the first lesson in that course for free. So that would actually be a useful place to go. Right, okay, I'm now going to look at some of the questions that I've got saved up here. So, Sayar Remani asked, Robert, I want to ask how much of, it says how much course, I think it means how much of the primary school course, primary school curriculum is included in the 11 Plus. Is it all of year 6 or just some parts of year 6? My child is in year 4, but I started to think that we should start learning year 5 maths and English because there is a lot to cover. Yeah, this is a question that a lot of people wonder about. Does the 11 plus exam cover year 6 work? This is how it's supposed to work. How it's supposed to work is that the 11 plus covers knowledge up to the end of year 5, but then there may be some questions that look a little bit like year 6 work, but that you can actually solve with your earlier knowledge, and they're designed to test how well you do with less familiar stuff. So for example, questions that require you to put your fractions knowledge together to do something a little bit more advanced, but you can still solve it with year 5 fractions knowledge. That's the idea. In practice, I don't think that's completely the way that it works, because for one thing, those sorts of questions, if you've studied some of the year 6 curriculum, then you're better prepared for them. And in a way, a lot of the point of year 6 in primary school is that you're putting together a lot of things that you've learned earlier. So in a way, that is the year 6 curriculum. For another thing, I don't think all schools break up the curriculum between year 5 and year 6 in exactly the same way. So what's year 6 curriculum for one person might be late year 5 curriculum for another person. It isn't absolutely neat and tidy like that. So I don't think you can quite define it in that way. Question setters aren't always as careful about this as they could be, and sometimes questions just trespass into year 6 content by accident. And then we get to some of the more competitive independent schools which deliberately set really horrible, difficult questions that test year 6 knowledge and indeed stuff from beyond year 6 knowledge. You might argue that's looking for You might argue that's looking for people who are really clever at using what they already know or have studied beyond the syllabus. I think it's a little bit biased towards people who've been to private prep schools who've got more chance of having covered this stuff, but what I think doesn't count. So anyway, basically, make sure that your child has really got on year 4 and year 5 stuff, but some things that look a little bit year 6 may appear and might be worth studying. So your question was, I've started to think that I should learn year 5 now with my child in year 4 so that I can learn year 6 stuff when my child is in year 5. I understand where you're coming from. I wouldn't approach it like that. And the reason is that if you just start going through the curriculum topic by topic at home on top of what your child's doing at school, it's probably not going to amount to a very good exam preparation, because what's going to happen is that by the time you've studied, for example, the 8th maths topic that you're going to look at, your child is already forgetting the 1st and 2nd maths topics that you looked at. And then you have to go back and look at those again. And then they're going to forget the 7th and 8th topics that you looked at. And you've still got other topics to cover. So working topic by topic when you're preparing for an exam, where you need to bring everything together, often isn't a very good way to do things. And so I wouldn't think in terms of learning the year 5 curriculum and learning the year 6 curriculum. I don't think that's the best way to go about things. What I generally advise when it comes to finding weak areas, in other words, things that your child doesn't know yet, or maybe you are the child, let's say things that you don't know yet, or question types that you aren't so good at, is to work through practice papers and past papers. And as you or your child does practice work, look out for the topics that they're less strong on, and then practice that topic, revise that topic until they know enough to do that question confidently, and then move on. Then come back to that same question after a few days and check that they still remember it. And that's a more organic, a more natural way of patching gaps in knowledge that's more based around the way that you learn for an exam, I think, in most cases. And it's more likely to stay fresh in the mind if it's in that context. And also by doing it that way, you're not going to learn loads of stuff that isn't actually useful for an exam. Grigory's going crazy wanting me to let him out the door. So if you could just hang on a second, I'm going to go and let Grigory out and then run back. Grigory, I'm coming. And I'm back. What you want to do, of course, if you're going to study in that sort of way, is ideally to use practice papers that have really detailed answers. And those of you who know me, you can tell where this is going. I sell loads of practice papers with detailed answers, especially through my 11 Plus Lifeline service. You can find out more through the links in the video description if you go to my website. I would say that, but it's also kind of true. And there are other publishers who also publish papers with answers, just their answers aren't as detailed. That's true, by the way. Right. Oh, I've got lots of questions coming in. This is brilliant. I'm going to deal with the ones that came in earlier, and then I'm going to get on to this. Yeah. Okay. The next question from Seha was actually part. I've actually answered that, which is how to cover 3 years curriculum in 2 years. I would focus on doing what I've just said. Also, reinforce things from school. That's really important. There's one thing that I'd add actually. Make sure that the basic core skills are really secure before you start this process. So make sure that your child has a good command of basic grammar. Make sure that their times tables are strong, that they know how to work with the basic principles of fractions, decimals, percentages, that sort of thing. Make sure that their spellings are going in a reasonably good direction and they've got a good system for learning spellings. Get these things in place before you start plunging in with lots of practice papers. I think that's worth saying. Okay, I like this question. My next question is about your comprehension books. If I get those, is there a way you can review the answers? Yes, there is. I have a feedback service. And what happens is you send me work and then I send it back to you in an online document, which is covered in little coloured dots wherever I've got a comment to make. And you click on the dot and then up next to it pops, that's a strange way to put it, then a comment pops up next to it, which is either a voice comment with me talking at you or a video comment that looks a bit like this, in which I explain what you've done well, what you could do even better, how you could do it, what mistakes you've made and why they are mistakes, that sort of thing. And then as I go, I explain how you can make your piece of work overall much better, whether it's a story or some written comprehension answers or whatever it might be. So that's a really good way to send me answers to review. But the other thing to say about my comprehension books is that they contain really detailed answers and marking guidance. So you might actually find that you can do a lot of this yourself. If you want to try my marking service, you can try it for free. Link in the video description. Go to my website. Okay, thank you very much, Seha, for your questions. Apurva in the comments earlier asked this about 1 million times until I suggested maybe that it had been asked sufficiently. Thank you for stopping. And the question was, how do you do well in a mock? And this is a classic kind of question where I give an answer that's, not on point. The point of a mock is not to do well in it. That's not what mock exams are for. Because mock exams fundamentally don't matter, right? They don't count towards anything. Only you and your family know the results unless you choose to go around telling other people. The point of a mock is not to do well. There are 2 main points to a mock exam. The first one, and actually I think the most important one, is that it gets you used to the feeling of sitting in an exam hall, having other children around about you doing annoying things, and that sort of thing, so that the first time you encounter that isn't when you do a real exam. And you're less likely to be put off by all that or scared or whatever. And it gives you a sense of what it's like to time your work, watching a big clock on the wall of the exam hall and that sort of thing. That's the main point of doing a mock exam, actually. You achieve a lot of the benefit of a mock exam just by turning up. But you don't get much more of that benefit by doing it again and again and again and again and again. I'm not a big fan of doing loads of mocks. Do 1, or if you really think it's useful, do 2 mocks. I wouldn't do any more than that. And the second point of a mock exam is to get a sense for yourself of what your weak points are. So what did you find difficult? What do you need to work on more? It might help to reveal some things that you didn't notice in your own study. However, a mock exam is just one test. To be honest, just doing normal practice papers yourself is going to be more useful for that, particularly because you can review them yourself. You can go slowly, you can go quickly. You've got much more flexibility in how you do it. So the main point of a mock is just to get used to an exam. So how to do well in it? I mean, it's the same as revising for your 11 plus exam in that way, but I really wouldn't worry about that very much. It doesn't matter what mark you get. What matters about a mock is what you learn from it and how much it helps you towards your real exam in the end. One other thing to say about mocks, which may be controversial, if the rest of that wasn't already a bit controversial. The various companies that offer mock 11 plus exams normally give you a mark and a report after the exam. I think you can pretty much ignore those marks and reports. I've seen many of them over the years, and they're almost always terrible. I often see the papers and the feedback that was given, and the feedback in the I looked at them and I just go, this feedback doesn't match this paper at all. Unfortunately, I'm sure this is not all companies offering mock exams, but the ones whose feedback I've seen, they obviously didn't care what they were doing. They don't care about your improvement. They don't care about anything. They just write a load of rubbish and get paid for it. So the point of the mock exam is to practice doing an exam and for you to think about your strengths and weaknesses. Don't get hung up on whatever feedback you get afterwards. It's probably a load of rubbish and they probably barely read your paper anyway. Right, that's the kind of thing I'm going to regret saying later when I get an angry email from somebody. Okay, somebody asked, suddenly Mega has asked, how long should you study every day? That's Mega Grover. And somebody else earlier asked, how many hours should you study for the 11 plus, which I guess was over the whole span. I don't know, 2 million hours. Don't do that. Don't study for 2 million hours. You'll be there for, several millennia, I would guess, without doing the calculation. Well, yes, 24 hours in a day. It's quite easy to calculate, actually. Right, enough said. How many hours should you study? It isn't fundamentally a question of how many hours, by which I mean just because you study for twice as many hours doesn't mean that you'll do twice as well. It might even mean that you do less well. It's about how you study and not about how much you study. Within bounds, obviously you should be working quite hard if you want to do well, and you can't cheat it by doing barely any work and expecting to learn stuff. That isn't how life goes. But it certainly isn't true that you should just cram in as many hours as possible. It's about having a good rhythm in your preparation. So, if you work 27 hours one day and then you don't do any work for the next week, that's much less useful than doing a steady 45 minutes each day where you're working consistently and building your skills, for example. It's about having a good study rhythm. And a good rhythm includes giving yourself a break sometimes and having days off and doing fun stuff and not dropping all your hobbies. And that's something I think is very important. Having a good rhythm and a really focused structure. So keep records of what your weak areas are that you need to address, that you found out by doing practice papers, and then go through from your weakest points, practicing those skills, then having a system you've written down which question you struggled with that showed you that you need to practice this. After you've studied this for a bit and you feel more confident, try that question again and see whether you really do feel more confident. For example, if you think about maths, there are good resources like the Pi Academy website, for example, has lots of maths questions categorized by type available for free, and you can use those questions to check how well you're doing in a particular maths topic area. That sort of thing is really useful when you're doing this kind of focused study. So it's about having a good system, knowing what you're studying and why, and having a good rhythm of study from day to day and week to week. That's much more important than the number of hours. Some people study really well for long periods and can learn a lot. Someone else will study for the same length of time, and in the second half of it, they're just staring at the page and not learning anything. That's a waste of time. Don't do that. You should be prepared to push through a bit of boredom. Doing important things does involve getting bored sometimes. There's no hiding from that. But you shouldn't be dreading your study and you shouldn't be bored all the time. If that's the case, then you're trying to do too much, and you need to think about how you're studying a bit more and be a bit more efficient, and not just kill yourself doing it. That's not going to help you. I mentioned hobbies and so on earlier. I'm a really, really big fan of keeping going the things that are important to you in your life, whether that's seeing your friends, whether that's hobbies that you do, whether it's days out, whatever that might be. Because you are going to be doing exams and things like exams, I'm sorry to say this, for much of your life. You're going to be doing the 11 plus, you're going to be doing in-year assessments at school, you're going to have GCSEs and A-levels or, international baccalaureate or whatever it might be. You're going to have university entrance tests. You're going to have first-year exams at university and second-year exams and final exams. Then you might do a postgraduate or professional qualification. Then you might have continuous assessment in whatever job you do, and so on and so on. Most of you will be doing exams well into your early to mid-20s, and some of you will be keeping doing exams all your life. Now, the point I'm making here is that every time you've got an exam to prepare for, you stop doing all your hobbies. That means you're just not going to have any hobbies anymore. And if you drop your friends, it means you're not going to have friends. So you need to find a way to work these things around your 11 plus preparation. It'll help to keep you sane. It'll mean it doesn't feel too stressful. You'll do better, basically, as long as you're sensible about it. Right. Enough on that. How many hours to study? Can you make a video about perimeters? This is an example of a kind of question I get a lot. I've said it earlier. I've got videos and lots of things on my channel. For this one, look for terms like areas, shapes, and that kind of thing. I may have said this before. Apologies if so. Okay, right. Let's have a look through some of the questions that have come in. Those are the ones I noted down before the lesson from what people had asked in advance. Goodness me, someone says, my name is Kishan and I watch every video. Every video. That's ludicrous. Ludicrous. I hope you learnt at least one thing. How much do you study? How much do I study? Not nearly enough, I can tell you. Lots of questions about how much time you should study. I hope I've answered those. What is the subject? This is one that loses people marks, the most common one. It's a perfectly sensible question, but it obviously depends on the person. Different people are strong in different areas. Lots of people find wordy maths problems difficult. That's one thing I noticed. People call them word problems, which I don't think is a great expression because all questions are word problems, really. Pretty much all questions. But that's certainly something to think about. Taking a big chunk of words and thinking what is actually the key information here. Jot it down and work out where you can go from there. Not be blindsided by a big mass of text on the page. Dual passage comprehension. Maybe I should do a video about that at some point, actually, of antic music. That's a good one. Apurva says, stop using the same covers. Why? I'm exceptionally busy. Really busy. Sometimes I take a cover from, years ago and reuse it. I mean, there are only about 2 of you who notice. How to do good in speed. Actually, a very good question. It's one I'm always asked in these question and answer sessions, but that's no reason not to answer it. What was I going to say? Yeah, how to do good at speed. So I'm not going to give a massive answer here because I've answered this in all my other videos like this. The most important thing is not to just practice trying to work faster and faster. That doesn't help much. It just means that you make the same mistakes faster and often make more mistakes. What you need to do instead is work out what slows you down. Because not finishing an exam in time is not normally because you work really slowly on every question. It's normally because you work through it at a perfectly reasonable speed, and then you get to a question and you go, and you stare at the page, and you stare at the page, and you stare at the page, and you still haven't started, and 5 minutes have gone on the clock, and suddenly you're in trouble in terms of timing. You need to work out what topics or what kinds of question wording cause you to do that. You need to focus on practicing those skills, and that's what will help you to finish your exams in time. I wouldn't really call it speed. I mean, it is speed, but if you think about speed, you think about rushing. Finishing exams in time is not about rushing. It's about just working steadily and not getting blocked at certain points. You don't need to rush to finish an exam comfortably. Toyin says, I came late, I don't know what is happening. Welcome to my life. Kit Chan says, Robert, I've learnt so much from you. Thank you. Thank you so much. That's the kind of question I like. I don't know how to answer it, but I like it. I love this. Someone saying, where can I learn about nets and cubes? Someone didn't say, look at Robert's videos. I have videos on nets and cubes, but much more amusingly, someone said, just search up nets and cubes. Then you will see a bald guy. Children are brutal. Brutal. Yeah, I don't know, in a few years' time, someone will be saying exactly that about my videos on my channel. Morchicat is writing creative writing. The cat mutters and turns pale in the face. You, what? Get your hands off my tuna. Who knows what's on them? Grigori yells, pointing a long polished tuna bone towards the newcomer. I like it. Rob, my name is Keshan, and can you tell me a timetable for school days then weekends, please? Monday morning, double maths. Tuesday afternoon, gym class. Is that what you mean? No, I think you mean revision timetable, right? That's the question I answered before. But these are quite old questions. Outrageous. People are recommending other people's YouTube channels in the comments. Get out! No, it's actually really good. I'm glad that you're finding people who help you out. You're here, so I must be doing something useful sometimes. I'm just seeing the same questions again and again. People ask why I have slow mode to stop people posting questions constantly. This is why, because they still do it. Sokomba Alalade says, hi, with your help, 11 plus became fun and I passed. E indeed. Very well done. Fantastic. I've got a ludicrous question. This is clearly a satirical question from Ohio Final Boss. This is the definition of a humble brag. I did a mock test and got 97%. Is this enough to make it to a grammar school? No, 97% is a really terrible mark. You may as well just give up now, frankly. If you're only getting 97%, goodness me. I mean, why are you even trying? That's the kind of question that isn't actually a question. It's just an excuse to say that they got 97%. I see you. Okay. Although I see other people falling into the trap. Mochi Cat says, "Oh, hi, final boss. That is a really high score." Yes. Kalpana, Google says that the practice paper is harder than the actual test. That depends on the practice paper and it depends on the test. If you're doing bond books and then go and sit an exam for Eton College, you're probably going to find that the real exam is rather harder than the practice test. It just depends, doesn't it? How to get better at creative writing? I've got loads and loads of stuff for creative writing, including loads of classes that you can join. Try a first lesson for free, and loads of stuff on the website, including various free things. Click on the link. More broadly, how do you get better at creative writing? There's no simple answer to this, but a few things. I'm just going to fire off a few thoughts. Don't waste time introducing or giving background or telling me all about the character. Start right in the middle of the events. That almost always produces the best answers. If you said something that's worth saying, it's worth developing. So don't just describe something briefly, add another sentence that describes another part of it. Always try to develop character by describing the way that that person experiences the world. What do they smell around them? What feelings do they notice when they touch things? What sounds do they hear? All these things will develop character. When something happens, how do they react? And that is the really big thing for character. It's how we respond to things, how we react to things. Someone's rude to me in the comments. How do I react to that? If someone flatters me in the comments, how do I react to that? These are the things that give you a sense of what kind of person I am. The same thing applies to the characters in your stories. So really focus on character. Keep your plots very, very simple. The less that happens in your story, often the better the story. Because the more you're describing, the more you're developing ideas, and the less you're listing events. Those are just a few things to get you started. But all this kind of stuff I go into in my lessons and my writing resources and so on and so on and so on and so on and so on. People asking the same questions again and again and again, which means it's really hard for me to see the new questions. People, you're annoying. You're so annoying. Stop asking the same questions again and again. I'm just struggling to see anything new because it's the same people asking the same stuff. No T says, guys, do RSL. It is very good. Yeah, whatever this RSL thing is, you should definitely do it. This is me scrolling through the questions about the soundtrack. How to do good for Dame Alice. They publish some past papers on their website. They're very similar to a lot of the resources that I publish, actually. It's the same thing as every exam. Steady practice, identify your weak points, work on those, but keep practicing the things that you're good at as well. Don't lose track of those so that you continue to be good at them. Someone's noting there are only 36 people. When I do these question and answer sessions, it's normally because I didn't have time to prepare a topic-based lesson. And normally fewer people turn up live. That's normal. But lots of people see the lessons afterwards. I'm going to wrap up soon because we'll be going about half an hour. We've got the same kinds of questions. They're kind of school specific and so on. So let's call it a day there. Thank you very much for your questions, everybody. I hope I've said something useful. I hope you haven't been too excessively bored. Go forth and conquer and do brilliantly in your 11+. But look, the 11+, you can see it as just all about getting into your preferred school. And what happens if you don't? Then it's all been a complete waste. Much better to think about the 11+ as an opportunity to pull together all the stuff that you've learned over the last few years, get yourself really good at it, and set yourself up really well for secondary school, wherever you go, whether it's the school you're aiming for, whether it's another school. See it, look at it in a positive light. It's about your learning, about, developing your learning. It's about building up really useful exam skills. It's about pulling everything together, applying things in different circumstances, and just becoming great at your main subjects. And then, hopefully after that, you get into your preferred school. You've got a very good chance if you've done all that work. But if you don't, it's still not a waste of time. It's still really, really useful. Look at it that way and relax and get on with it. And I hope you do really well. All right, everybody. I will see you around for another lesson very soon, probably next Tuesday evening at 6 o'clock, in which I will, I promise, actually look at a topic and put out a worksheet in advance like I usually do. In the meantime, please go to my website, try things out, and try all the free stuff because it's there. It's actually free. Normally it comes with little catches like you get on my mailing list, which you can unsubscribe from. That's it. Otherwise, just stuff is free. Yeah, I'm waffling. Oh, everybody, get the music going. We're winding down. Go away, have a lovely evening. Enjoy your dinner. Whatever. Bye-bye. Go away, everybody.